My name is Tara R. Wright, and I am 26 years old. Until 3 months ago, I was living in a small apartment just outside Atlanta while finishing my master's degree in information systems. I worked part-time in IT support and had a standing offer from a company in Texas that I kept postponing because my boyfriend, Liam Carter, was graduating in the spring and wanted stability. Liam is 24. We had been together just over 2 years. He was finishing his communications degree and treated his graduation like a royal coronation. Photo shoots booked weeks in advance, custom suit tailored, caption drafts written before the ceremony even happened. He wasn't just graduating, he was launching. The apartment was technically in both our names, but I handled most of the bills. He said he didn't want financial stress before stepping into his next level. I believed that was temporary. I believed in investing in us. From the outside, we looked solid. He posted stories about building with my queen, tagged me in late-night study photos, wrote captions about loyalty and partnership. Behind the curated feed, the tone had shifted months earlier. It started small. He would roll his eyes when I questioned his spending, call me negative if I suggested tightening up before his student loan grace period ended. If I mentioned budgets, he said I was killing the vibe. Then the phrase showed up. I don't want drama, Tara. He used it whenever I brought up anything inconvenient. Him texting a girl from his internship at 1 a.m. Not drama. Him canceling our anniversary dinner because his friends wanted to go bar hopping. Not drama. Him joking publicly that I was lucky he hadn't upgraded yet. Definitely not drama. Any pushback from me? Drama. 6 weeks before his graduation, I received the formal offer letter from the Texas company. Better salary, relocation package, real trajectory. I showed it to him that night, expecting at least curiosity. He barely looked at it. So what, you're just going to run off right before my graduation, he said. That's messy. I don't want drama. I told him it wasn't running off. It was a career move. He said timing is everything, that if I cared about him, I'd wait until after he was settled. What does settled mean? I asked. He shrugged. I don't know yet. I just don't want long-distance complications during my graduation glow-up. Glow-up! That was the word. A week later, we argued because I asked why he posted a picture with that same internship girl with the caption, "Future connections matter." He said I was being insecure. I don't want drama, Tara. If you're going to start, maybe we need space. That sentence landed differently. It didn't sound like a boundary. It sounded like permission. That was the moment I stopped arguing. I didn't withdraw dramatically. I didn't accuse him. I didn't fight harder. I simply shifted. The next time he said he didn't want drama, I nodded and said, understood. No follow-up, no defense, no explanation about how respect isn't drama. Just friction removed. When he canceled our Friday dinner for a last-minute networking mixer, I said, have fun, and stayed home working on certification modules for the Texas role. He gave me a suspicious look on his way out, like he expected resistance. When he posted another filtered graduation countdown and that internship girl hyped him up in the comments, I didn't ask about it. I muted his stories instead. I stopped reacting. And I started preparing. After that night, I stopped volunteering reassurance. I stopped chasing clarity. I stopped trying to decode tone. Instead, I shifted into logistics mode. I emailed the Texas recruiter and told them I was ready to move forward. I asked about relocation timelines, temporary housing, start dates. We locked in mid-June, 2 weeks after Liam's graduation ceremony. I didn't announce that at home. Inside the apartment, I became efficient. I paid my half of the bills early. I stopped covering his extras. When he ordered takeout, I didn't automatically transfer money. If he forgot to send utilities funds, I reminded him once, not 3 times. He noticed. You're quiet lately. Yeah. You good? Yeah. The thing about people who accuse you of causing drama is they get uncomfortable when there isn't any. A few days later, he tried picking a small fight about me not being excited enough about his graduation shoot. I had simply said the photographer did a good job. That's it? That's all you have to say? It looks professional, I replied. He stared at me like he was searching for the button he used to press. Finally, he said it again. I don't want tension, Tara. Understood. That word started irritating him when it came from me. Meanwhile, I began sorting my things quietly. Important documents into one folder. Clothes I hadn't worn in months into donation bags. My certifications printed and placed neatly into a binder. He didn't notice at first. Then one evening, he asked if I was still planning to wait on Texas. I accepted the offer, I said calmly. The silence that followed wasn't loud, it was cold. You're serious? Yes. He laughed once, sharp. So you're choosing a job over us? I didn't correct him. I simply said, "You told me you don't want drama." For the first time, something flickered in his expression that wasn't confidence. Over the next week, he recalibrated. Suddenly affectionate, random hugs while I was doing dishes, sitting closer than usual on the couch, posting throwback photos of us with captions about loyalty and growth. It would have been sweet if it didn't feel strategic. 3 weeks before graduation, he brought up a beach trip he wanted to take immediately after the ceremony. A house with friends, 4 days of celebration. "You'll still be here then, right?" he asked casually. My start date in Texas was 2 weeks after graduation. "I'll still be here," I said. He smiled like he had secured something. Then he added, "I just don't want anything messy during that time. No weird conversations about moving. I need this to be perfect." Perfect. Understood. His smile tightened. Around this time, I noticed the internship girls showing up more often. Not physically at our place, but digitally. Inside jokes in the comments, subtle references, familiar tone. I didn't confront him. That would be drama. Instead, I spoke to the leasing office, confirmed I could remove myself from the lease with proper notice, checked early termination clauses, calculated final utilities. Then I started packing in increments. My books disappeared from the shelf, my extra shoes from the closet. The framed photo of us from last Christmas went into a drawer. He noticed that one. Where'd the picture go? Reorganizing. Why? No reason. He studied me, deciding whether to escalate. Then he said it. "You're being weird." Just keeping things simple. "No drama," I added lightly. That irritated him more when it came from me. The week of graduation rehearsal, he came home flushed with excitement, talking about how everything felt aligned. Career prospects, fresh energy, new beginnings. Then he said something casually. "I just need to make sure the right people are around me when I level up." "The right people?" I asked. "People who don't complicate things." I nodded slowly. That night, after he fell asleep, I booked my one-way flight to Texas for the Monday after his beach trip. I decided I wouldn't announce it. Graduation week arrived like a movie premiere. Suit laid out days in advance. Hair appointment confirmed. Photographer booked. He was glowing. I stayed steady. I steamed his suit, drove him to rehearsal, took photos when he asked, smiled when his family hugged me and said how proud they were of both of us. That word felt like a technicality. The night before the ceremony, he sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through comments. The internship girl had commented something about bigger stages. He liked it immediately. Then he turned to me. "Promise me you won't do anything weird tomorrow." "Weird how?" "No heavy talks, no emotional stuff. I just want clean energy, no drama." "Understood." He exhaled like I'd signed a contract. And in a way, I had. The ceremony itself was predictable. Caps in the air, speeches about legacy, endless photos. I stood beside him in most of them, held his flowers, carried his jacket when he got too warm. I smiled when his relatives said how proud they were of both of you. That word felt polite, not accurate. At dinner afterward, his friends toasted to new chapters. One of them joked about who would still be around for the next phase. Liam laughed and said, "We'll see who survives it." He squeezed my hand when he said it, but he didn't look at me. I didn't squeeze back. The next morning, he left for the beach house trip with his friends. I helped load his suitcase into the car. He kissed me lightly and said, "Don't overthink things while I'm gone." "I won't," I replied. As soon as he drove off, I went upstairs and started packing for real. Not angrily, not rushed, efficiently. Clothes folded into 2 large suitcases, documents into my carry-on, laptop, external drives, certifications, passport. I left the shared furniture, the couch, the table, the television. He cared about aesthetic, I cared about mobility. By Sunday night, almost everything that belonged to me was gone, except for a few basics, so the apartment wouldn't look hollow if he came home early. Monday morning, I stripped the bed, washed my sheets, packed the last of my things. Then I took my copy of the key off my ring and placed it neatly on the kitchen counter. No note, no speech. I locked the door behind me and left for the airport. He didn't notice until Wednesday. "Hey, did you move your stuff?" he texted. I was already in Texas, sitting in a temporary corporate apartment that smelled like new carpet and fresh paint. I waited 3 hours before replying. "Yeah." 5 minutes later. "What do you mean, yeah?" I moved. He called immediately. I let it ring once before answering. "Tara, what is this?" "My start date was this week," I said calmly. "I didn't want to create drama during your graduation glow-up." Silence on the other end. "You couldn't even tell me?" "You asked for clean energy." "But don't twist my words." "I'm not twisting anything. I figured space was better than tension." His breathing changed, sharper now. So I come home to an empty apartment and a key on the counter. I left the shared items. Rent's paid for the month. Another pause. Are you breaking up with me? I considered that for a second. Not emotionally, logically. I'm not doing anything dramatic, I said. I accepted a job and relocated. That's childish. I aligned my actions with what you've been asking for. He laughed, but it wasn't confident. People are going to ask where you are. Tell them I moved for work. You're making me look stupid. That was the first honest thing he said. He wasn't angry about the move. He was angry about the optics. That evening, he posted a graduation recap. No mention of me. No tag. Just captions about independence and stepping into power. The internship girl commented within minutes. Proud of you. I muted the thread and went to bed early. The next day, he texted again. Are we done? I stared at the message longer than I expected. Not because I didn't know the answer, because I knew what he was really asking. He wasn't asking if the relationship was over. He was asking if he still had access. Access to reassurance. Access to the safety net. Access to me eventually coming back. I typed one line. I think we already were. 3 dots appeared immediately. So that's it? 2 years and you just ghost? I didn't respond. Another message. You're proving me right about you being dramatic. That one almost made me smile. I packed quietly, paid my share, left a key. If that was drama, then the definition had shifted. Then came the sentence that sealed it. Evan says this is manipulative behavior. Not I feel. Not I think, Evan says. Something inside me detached completely. I opened our thread, scrolled back once, and realized how many of my past messages were explanations, justifications, clarifications. This time I didn't explain. I blocked his number, then Instagram, then Snapchat, muted his email. Not out of anger, out of finality. For the first time in 2 years, my phone was quiet in a way that didn't feel tense. 2 days later, a mutual friend texted me. Liam's kind of spiraling. What happened? Moved for work, I replied, keeping it clean. Apparently, he posted a vague story about betrayal and women who can't handle strong men. Deleted it. Reposted graduation photos like nothing happened. From a distance, I watched the narrative trying to reshape itself without me in it. And that's when the fairy tale started thinning. For the first 2 weeks after I blocked him, nothing dramatic happened. No fake accounts trying to follow me. No late-night calls from unknown numbers. No public meltdown. Just silence. That silence did something interesting. It forced him to build a version of the story without my participation. Through mutual friends, updates filtered back to me like weather reports from a city I used to live in. At first, he framed it as me being impulsive. Said I couldn't handle him stepping into a bigger phase of life. Said I felt threatened by his success. Success was an ambitious word considering he didn't have a job lined up yet. Then the internship ended. Evan didn't secure a full-time position either. That detail came casually from a friend who still followed him closely. The future connections weren't turning into offers. 30 days later, his student loan repayment kicked in. The apartment lease renewal was approaching. For the first time since I'd known him, there wasn't a steady fallback sitting quietly beside him. One Friday night, a mutual friend FaceTimed me. He thought you'd call by now, she said. Why? I asked. She said you always cave eventually. That hit differently. Not because it hurt, because it confirmed the pattern. He didn't think I'd leave. He thought I'd create just enough tension to prove I cared, then circle back so he could reset the dynamic. Instead, I removed myself from the board entirely. Around this time, I started noticing subtle shifts in his online tone. The graduation glow posts slowed. The leveling up captions disappeared. More generic quotes about growth through pain started appearing. One night, he posted something that stuck. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. He wasn't wrong. By month 2, the unraveling wasn't loud. It was practical. His lease renewal came up. From what I heard, he tried negotiating the rent down. The landlord didn't budge. Atlanta pricing didn't care about glow-ups. He'd always framed the apartment as ours. But I had been the one pushing for better Wi-Fi, stable utilities, renter's insurance. Without that background work, things started slipping. A friend mentioned he'd complained about how expensive everything suddenly felt. I didn't comment. In Texas, my life stabilized fast. New team, structured hours, real paychecks, health benefits, a routine that wasn't tied to someone else's mood or social calendar. I didn't post about it. That part confused him apparently because I wasn't spiraling publicly. I wasn't subposting. I wasn't trying to win. Silence doesn't give people material to fight. About 6 weeks after graduation, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. Subject line, "Can we talk?" I knew who it was without opening it. He wrote that he'd been thinking, that maybe things escalated unnecessarily, that he never wanted it to end like this. He said he assumed I'd at least check in after the beach trip. Assumed. That word again. He said he felt blindsided. I didn't respond. Not because I was cruel, because reopening the line defeats the boundary. A week later, another mutual friend told me Evan had started publicly dating someone else. Soft launch captions, tagged photos. Apparently Liam didn't take that well. The fairy tale wasn't just about me staying. It was about everything lining up effortlessly for him. And when it didn't, there was no one nearby to absorb the friction. 3 months after I moved, something shifted publicly. Not a meltdown, a recalibration. He made a long Instagram post about post-grad reality. The tone was different. No crown emojis, no glow-up language, just a caption about how transitions are harder than people admit, about learning who really supports you, about outgrowing versions of yourself. There were a lot of comments. No one asked about me. Not a single, "Where's Tara?" He had spent weeks quietly editing me out of the narrative. That part didn't bother me. What came next did. A mutual friend called one evening and said he had asked if I was seeing someone new. He didn't ask how I was doing. He didn't ask about the job. He asked if I'd replaced him. That question carried weight. It revealed what he thought this had been about. He assumed the silence meant I had filled the space with another man. It never occurred to him that I moved on because the dynamic was misaligned. A week later, he posted another story. Dating in your 20s is wild. People say forever and then disappear. Disappear. In his version, I vanished. In reality, I communicated for months. He categorized everything inconvenient as drama. The most telling update came through a friend who still worked at the company where he interned. Apparently, he'd tried leveraging connections to secure a role there. They passed. Evan recommended someone else. From what I heard, that stung. The graduation fairy tale wasn't exploding. It was thinning. And then, 4 months after I left, he reached out one last time. Not through email, not through a friend, through LinkedIn. Controlled. Professional. Measured. "Hey, Tara, I heard the Texas role is going well. Congrats. I've been reflecting lately. I handled some things immaturely. I hope you're doing well." I read it twice. Not because I didn't understand it, because I did. Reflection usually shows up when reality sets in. From what I'd heard, he'd taken a contract marketing role. Not glamorous. Not the dream job he expected to land immediately after graduation. The apartment had been downsized to a cheaper complex across town. The beach trip friend group had started scattering. Fairy tales are easy when someone else absorbs the cost of friction. Harder when you're the one signing the lease and answering the bills. I didn't respond. Not out of bitterness, because closure doesn't require dialogue when the lesson is already learned. Later that week, I was promoted to project lead. Nothing flashy, earned, structured, steady. I didn't post about it. That was the final difference between us. He curated moments. I built foundations. Looking back, when he said he didn't want drama, what he meant was he didn't want accountability. He didn't want negotiation. He didn't want boundaries. He wanted everything smooth without adjusting his behavior. So I gave him exactly what he asked for. No fight, no scene, no accusations. Just absence. He didn't want drama. Understood. About a month after his LinkedIn message, something unexpected happened. Not dramatic, not loud, subtle. A mutual friend sent me a screenshot of one of Liam's posts. It wasn't flashy, no curated glow, no motivational quotes, just a photo of a small desk in a new apartment and a caption that read, "Starting over isn't glamorous, but it's necessary." That was new. There was no mention of betrayal, no vague references to disappearing partners, no dramatics about strong men misunderstood, just ownership, quiet and plain. I didn't react to the post, I didn't like it, I didn't comment, but I noticed the shift. A week later, I received another message from him. Short, direct. I meant what I said about reflecting. I confused accountability with conflict. I'm working on that. It was the first time he used the word accountability. I stared at the message for a long moment. Months earlier, that sentence would have triggered emotion. Now it registered like a weather update, informative, distant. I replied once, "I'm glad you're growing." That was it. No reopening, no revisiting the past, no suggestion of catching up. He responded with a simple, "Thank you." And that was the cleanest ending we ever had. Over time, updates about him stopped feeling relevant. I heard he secured a steady position eventually. Nothing flashy. Something stable. I heard he stopped posting motivational captions and started posting less altogether. Real life tends to quiet theatrics. Meanwhile, my life in Texas deepened. The project lead role expanded into cross-department oversight. I mentored junior developers. I signed my own lease on a place that felt chosen, not shared. I built routines that were mine alone, and something else happened quietly. I stopped replaying old conversations in my head. I stopped mentally rewriting what I could have said better. I stopped wondering whether leaving that way had been too cold. Because clarity doesn't need rehearsal. One evening, sitting on my balcony, after a long week, I realized something that made me smile. The most powerful part of the entire situation wasn't the move. It wasn't the new salary. It wasn't the silence. It was the fact that I never had to raise my voice to leave. He didn't want drama, and I didn't need it. Sometimes the strongest move isn't confrontation. It's alignment. And sometimes the cleanest lesson someone can receive isn't a speech. It's absence. If he grew from it, good. If he didn't, that's no longer my responsibility. Because when I said understood, I meant it. And that was the end of everything that needed to end.